When you go to sew a button on your fabric, you always want to check and make sure you sew it on so the side with the rim or the ridge is up. That's your good side. I'll put my button down for a second and we'll do our beginning tack. This is the same beginning tack that we've done when we've done the running stitch or the back stitch. And we'll take the needle and we'll go up from the bottom of the fabric to the top or the good side. And I like to count over just 2 or 3 of the white threads, and I put my needle down. When we do this, you'll have a little dash on the top of your fabric. That's the beginning tack. And when I put my needle up, I did not pull the thread all the way through so that the knot was right up against the fabric. I like to separate the 2 threads on the bad side, or in class we refer to it as the yucky side. And I put my needle right through those 2 threads and then pull my needle up. When we do this, there's no way that the threads will come through of the other side of the fabric. Your work won't come out. So this is again the bad side or the yucky side where we have the little thread tail and the knot. If you have a long thread tail, please trim it. And we'll take the needle, we'll go right up to the good side. Our beginning tack is done, and now we're ready to put our button on. I've got the rim or the ridge side up, and I'll pick one hole and I'll just put my needle right through the hole. It's important when you put the button on that you don't do what I call travel. Many times people will do a nice beginning tack and then they put the button on over away from the tack. You really want to try and get the button on right on top of that beginning tack. So you want to be careful of that. Today I'm going to sew the button so we have 2 parallel lines. We'll have a line here and a stitching line there. You can also sew buttons on 4-hole buttons so that your stitching is crossed. One going this way and then diagonally going that way. But today we'll do the parallel. Again, I'm holding the button rather tightly to the fabric so it won't slide. I always make sure I look at the back of my work as often as I look at the front of my work. That way we'll keep the back of our work nice and neat. And I try and pick one spot where the needle will go up and one spot where the needle goes down. That way we don't have messy work on the back. If you're off just a little bit, I'm off here just a little bit, that's fine. And I'm trying to go right back in where I went in for the beginning tack, and I'll come right up here. For a medium-sized button, it's good to go around about 5 or 6 times. Smaller, of course, you'll go around 3 or 4 times. I'm just going to move my needle back to try and get right back in there. We're going to be working towards having a perfect U on the back of our work. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. I'll go right back up here, go around one more time. Now I've done my stitching on this side of the button. Now it's time to stitch this side. So I'm going to turn my work over and I will just take my needle and I'll move it right over. Hopefully I'll find those holes. There we go. So we'll come right up on this side, and this is how it looks on the back of your work. This will be the bottom of the U. This is the side of the U. And now we'll stitch the other side of the U. If you lose track counting how many times you're going to round, go to do the second side. Just make sure that you're stitching this side and this side. They look pretty equal. Right now we can tell we have more stitches here than we do here. Okay, now that I've gone around 5 or 6 times on each side, it's time to do an end tack. To do an end tack, I'll flip my work over, and whatever side the thread is on, that's the side that I like to do my end tack on. So I'll be tacking over here, not over here. And all you do is take your needle and go right underneath the stitches. You don't have to get under all of them. If you get under at least 2 of them, that's good. And we'll pull the needle. And I have a loop here. We go right through the loop, and I'll do it again, under the stitches, through the loop. I like to do that 3 times. That will assure that the button won't come off when you're wearing it or when the clothing item is washed. And then, after I've done that 3 times, I take my scissors or my shears and I cut my thread. I leave enough so that I can do overhand tie. I stow my needle, and I use my fingernails to separate the threads, and I'll do an overhand tie. 1, 2. And then of course I like to trim my work. And this is the U shape on the back of the button, and here's the front of your button.